Welcome to the ninth episode of A Change is a Chance. I'm Ryan Lowe, and in my podcast, I interview different experts to educate listeners, especially young listeners like me, on the issues in the world. Elections are 16 days away. 16! One of the most pressing issues at stake is race and racial equality. The last two episodes, we talked about systemic racism, the BLM movement, and voter suppression. Today, we're talking about the unique challenges that Black-owned businesses face and the lack of diversity in leadership positions. Now, these topics are pretty hard to understand and explain, which is why I am very happy to have my guest, Mr. Brent Leary, here to help us understand these topics and share some tips on how we can help. Mr. Leary is co-founder and partner of CRM Essentials, LLC, consulting and advisory firm. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management, as I learned. Mr. Leary works closely with companies of all sizes, but focuses on small businesses. He also has moderated many ethnic and gender diversity panels. Hello, Mr. Leary.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for having me here. This is great.
Well, I'm just happy to be able to do this for everyone. So how are you feeling about the upcoming election? Have you voted?
Ooh, boy. I haven't voted yet. I actually just got my mail-in ballot, so I'm going to fill that out and send it back in on Monday. But yeah, it's just slightly over 2 weeks, and it feels like it's been forever. These days are taking so long because there's so much. It feels like there's so much at stake. But yes, I am so ready to vote. And I am so ready to move to the next chapter.
Oh, yeah, it's real scary stuff. The whole world depends on this election. So, the country is so divided right now that it's crazy. One of the biggest topics of the election is race. I don't know why it's still being debated, but equal rights are human rights for me. So I want to start talking about Black-owned businesses. I read that while Black Americans consist of 13% of the U.S. population, there are only 7% of the businesses. Why do you think there is that gap? Why are there not more Black-owned businesses? And what are some unique challenges that Black business owners face?
Yeah, I think this goes back many, many years. And there's a time, in American history where Black folks couldn't even have their own businesses. They had to do only certain kinds of jobs, and they could only get the certain kind of education. And so their opportunities were very limited. And so it probably hasn't been since the past 40, 50 years since a lot of those things have finally started to changing. And, we could go to schools and colleges and universities and then go for different kind of careers and degrees and advanced degrees, and so that really limited opportunities just in itself. And then even when we did start getting those opportunities to do things that we weren't able to do before, and go into different fields, you were still kind of far behind. You didn't have the kind of experiences that others did. So there's that, and then there's also the kind of limited opportunities that have people invest in your businesses and be able to have that kind of capital to help you grow and become a bigger business. So a lot of different things kind of stood in the way, and even today there are still there's some of those kinds of challenges are still out there. But the good news is you do see a number of Black folks that are really interested and starting their own businesses, and they are, saving the money up, and they're finding opportunities. They're building their experiences up, and you're seeing more and more people go and do those business opportunities that they weren't able to do not even all that long ago. But there's a lot of good opportunities, and you're seeing a lot of progress made. So that's the positive side of things today.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. But if these businesses haven't always been doing as well as they should be, how are they doing now during the pandemic?
Well, that's the part of the pandemic that has really been tough because a lot of the businesses that were starting to develop and starting to do good, the pandemic has really hurt them because in a lot of ways that the kind of businesses that they were involved in were the kind of businesses that have really been hurt. You know, a lot of service industry businesses, a lot of kind of the folks that are on the essential side of the businesses who had to go out. They couldn't do things specifically in their home, but they built businesses that were face to face and kind of essential. Those kind of took a big hit. And so but you're seeing about 7 or 8 months in, there are starting to see some rebound to that, but it's still difficult. And what I find is that people are resilient and are looking for ways to still be a business owner, but maybe their business has changed a bit. Maybe they've had to kind of uh, look at how do they stay afloat and how can they transition their business from what it was to what will be something that could be sustainable even at a time of pandemic. So I just literally heard about a company here locally in Atlanta called Moki Pops, who they create have you ever heard of this company? They make vegan popsicles.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
yes, it's really interesting. And they were just kind of getting off the ground, so to speak. And then the pandemic hit, and then they had to, kind of figure out, well, how do we sustain, how do we make it through? And so they kind of transitioned uh, their business to be kind of take advantage of a bad situation. And so they started doing things like working with other businesses and becoming like deliver these pops in a way that they weren't looking to do before, because before people could come and you know go to the mall and you see a whole bunch of people around. So they decided, well, we'll bring the pops to the people, and we will get our masks on and we will get socially distanced, but we will deliver our pops to our audience, and we will try to figure out where can we go and how do we create a service business out of our Moki Pops. And so they thought, and they got resilient, and they figure out a way to stay in business and meet customer demand in a way that they had never thought of before. And so you're starting to see businesses and Black businesses and all businesses, particularly small businesses, figure out how can we change in a way that we will be able to stay in business and also create great customer experiences. So that was really cool to see. And I never had a vegan pop before. I think I'm going to have them try to come out to my house. You want me to send you a vegan popsicle too? Wouldn't that be kind of cool to try out?
That would be cool, yes. Well, these extraordinary people, their businesses really deserve much more support.
I think so. And I think one of the things that has taught us about this pandemic is that, you never know what is going to happen. Most people never thought a pandemic would hit us and make us all kind of stay inside and shop differently and go to school differently and work differently. And so it's that resiliency and that creativity and that innovativeness that I think people who have those kind of traits are the ones that are finding success, even as tough it is as it is. So that's kind of the thing that makes me feel positive, is that yeah, we got caught into a really tough situation, and unfortunately people are getting sick, and in some instances people are dying, but the human spirit is still very strong, and people are finding ways to stay in business, to stay in school, to live life, even if it's not the same kind of life that we were living not that long ago. But we're still here, and we're still finding ways to make it and succeed, and help each other out too. So that's the good thing, I think.
Well, it's always great to look on the positive. So, you are also a Black small business owner yourself, Mr. Leary. What have been some of your experiences growing your business, and have you encountered any of the obstacles that other Black businesses face?
Yeah, I think I'm so old. You can see I got a lot of gray in my beard, so I've been around for a while. So yeah, I've had the opportunity to stay in business for geez, coming up on 20 years now. And yeah, I face some things. I mean, there's racism out there, and sometimes it's not even the blatant kind of thing where somebody says something and the things they're saying are pretty racist. Sometimes it's the things that aren't said, or the things that aren't done, and they can be just as hurtful as some of the times when people say things directly to you. So you have to figure out ways to kind of deal with these situations, and you got to figure out what do you want to do and how do you want to do things, and what do you have, what are your strengths, and how badly do you want to do something. That's another thing you have to figure out. I knew that I wanted to kind of be my own business person, and kind of call the shots as to what direction I wanted to go in, and what did I want to do and who did I want to do it with. And so I just said, you know what? I got to learn some skills. I got to learn some traits, some things that allow me to make money. And then eventually, when I have enough experience and when I feel like I have enough, money saved up, I wanted to go out on my own, and that's kind of what I did. And I think the things that I've learned and that have helped me is that you got to have your kind of your reputation is your business in a lot of ways. The respect that that people give you, or you hopefully you earn from people based on what and how you treat people. That's kind of what you hang your hat on. And so that's for me, I've been able to learn things and then put things out there that I'm proud of. Like if I write something, or if I do an interview like this, or if I, do some kind of video, as long as I feel like I know what I'm talking about and I can back up what I'm saying, and I'm truthful to what's going on, then I feel good about it. And luckily, doing that has allowed me to make a lot of relationships and learn from people, and also be able to work with different people on different things. And so that's kind of my key to being in business for as long as I've been, is you know always be willing to learn, always be willing to listen, and always be willing to work with people, and to treat people the way that I want to be treated. And so far it's been really good for me. It's been helpful, and I'm able to continue working even in the middle of this pandemic. I've been able to stay in this house for the most part, but still work with lots of people, because we're able to reach so many people in a different way than before. But being able to stay connected and stay working during this time has really kind of been a testament to the things about earning people's respect and respecting people the same way too.
Well, thank you for sharing this. It's important for us to see things in a different perspective sometimes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and that's the other thing. Being able to you hear a word a lot lately, empathy, and being able to not only see your point of view. That's the easiest thing you can do, see your point of view, but how about seeing somebody else's point of view, and kind of stepping in their shoes, so to speak, and being as understanding as possible, because I think you want people to do that for you. And I think if we're able to do more of that, then we're able to have better relationships, and we're able to get more things done.
Yeah. So, who are Black business leaders that you admire and why?
Yeah. So early on in my career, well, actually, when I was a kid, there was this magazine that I used to read all the time. It was called BE, Black Enterprise Magazine, and it was one of these magazines where it showed you who was doing what in business. And when I was a kid, most of the time when you heard or talked about business, I didn't see anybody that looked like me. I didn't see a lot of those kind of folks in the newspaper or in some of the major magazines. And so it was kind of tough thinking, wow, this is some cool business stuff, but I don't see anybody in there like me. But then I found this magazine. It's like, I think my parents brought it home or something. Black Enterprise. I was a little kid and I would open it up and I see all these cool business stories and it was about Black people. And I remember just thinking, man, I would love to be in that magazine one day for doing something cool in business. Well, fast forward, a couple of years, and I actually had a chance to meet the publisher of that magazine, and it was such a high honor, and it made me feel like, wow, this is great. And his name was Earl Graves, by the way. And I met Mr. Graves, and I thanked him for putting out such stories. And I ended up being featured in Black Magazine, Black Enterprise Magazine. And I actually wrote for a year online, a weekly column for Black Enterprise Magazine. So that just made me, it was really a cool thing being able to, meet the guy who published the magazine when I was a kid that really turned me on to business, and then actually, work for a year writing a column for them. So I thought that was cool. And that was a big, that was big for me. So that was one person. And then there have been a couple of other people, a local person, a lady that also a publication. It's called Atlanta Tribune magazine. And I had an opportunity to partner with them on different conferences and I wrote a column on technology in the magazine, and I spoke at a number of their events. And Pat Letier and her husband, George Letier, they were really instrumental in me being able to do some of the things that I do today. So those are a couple of, examples that come to mind. There's a gentleman, Reginald, what is Reggie's last name? Anyway, he owned this company called TLC Beatrice, and this is like a huge conglomerate. And I had no idea like Black people could own these billion-dollar businesses. And then I saw him in the magazine once, and I was like, my goodness, this is so cool. I had no idea that we did things like that. And so he was an inspiration. I can't remember his last name, but I remember him so much. He was in the magazine smoking a cigar and looking so intelligent and so, like powerful. And I was like, that is so cool. I want to be something like that when I grow up. So yeah, there are a number of folks that I was able to come in contact with directly, or folks that I just looked up to because I saw them in magazines, or I saw them, heard about a big deal they had done, or they had, some people are like created a scholarship at a college, giving away millions of dollars because they made it. And a gentleman by the name of Robert Smith is another one of those guys who, I think he gave $100 million to a local Black school that because he wanted to have more people have the opportunities that he had. So those are the kinds of folks that I definitely look up to.
Well, you've got me interested. I can't wait to look them up after this.
That's great.
Mr. Leary, do you think that there is enough gender and ethnic diversity in the tech industry? Wait, actually, let's go deeper. Do you think that there is enough diversity in the leadership rank? If not, what do you think needs to be done to change that?
Well, that's a great distinction, because you could say even with the general kind of employee population, the answer still would be no to both gender and ethnic or diversity. But when you think about the leadership, the C-level kind of folks, it's even worse. I think there was an article that came out earlier this year that said roughly 2.7% of C-level positions in technology companies are populated with Black folks. So you mentioned a stat earlier that said 13% of the general population is Black. So 13% of the general population is Black, but only 2.7% of the C-level executives in tech companies are Black. So that's a huge disparity. So yeah, easily the answer is no. And you can still say the same with women as well, and gender diversity, still very much underrepresented. So we have a long ways to go on both of those sides. And you can also look at Latino executive positions; they're very underrepresented as well. So yeah, there's a lot that should be done and needs to be done around that. And I actually had an opportunity to speak with Google's head of strategy when it comes to diversity. And one of the things he said that really stuck with me is that people are, because of kind of what's going on with George Floyd this year and Breonna Taylor and some of the other things that have sparked protests, is that, when you think about, is this a opportunity to turn these moments into movements, that means certain things have to be really changed from the foundation. And if you look at 2.7% of Black folks being in these positions, how do you get more in there? That means you probably have to change your hiring practices. So that possibly means, or really does mean, that most of these high tech companies hire from a handful of schools. A lot of those schools are the schools that Black folks really don't go to. So how about looking at schools where we do go to and going there to find people to hire as well as the places you traditionally go to. So you have to do things differently if you want a different outcome. So I think we're at a point now, and I think I'm seeing it too. I'm thinking I'm seeing some of these changes starting to take place where the way things had been done traditionally, like recruiting at college campuses and recruiting for specific kinds of majors that traditionally you don't are Blacks are underrepresented in. You're starting to see companies say, you know what, we're going to go to the Black schools, that the HBCUs, and we're going to go and look at different majors, and we're going to look at how we can start incorporating at the beginning of the funnel, so to speak, how we can get more Black folks in and begin that process. And I think we're starting to see it, and we won't really know for sure for a couple of years if we start seeing these numbers really start to move. But at least to me, it feels like it's starting, and that's a good thing, at least.
Well, I would really love to see the 2.7 double or quadruple or quintuple.
Wow, I would too.
But instead of waiting on the sign, watching it not happen slowly, I want to keep fighting so it can happen quickly.
I think what you're doing right now is you've already started the process. And even having a conversation like this, I mean, how old are you, Ryan?
I'm 11, actually, and I'm about to turn 12 in 3 days.
Wow. Well, let me first say happy early birthday. 12 years old. So when I was 12 years old, I was not having conversations like this with people, Ryan. I was playing baseball or something. So the mere fact that you are not only thinking about it, but you're asking and you're having these conversations, that gives guys like me, the old guy like me, a lot of hope, because that means that people in your age group are thinking so much more advanced than when I was your age, eons ago, decades ago. So that's great. I think this is great. And I love that you're doing this and you're serious about it. And that I bet you have people in your age group that are also kind of having these kind of conversations. And that's great too, because that means that the earlier we get started, the sooner we can see things like that 2.7% go to 5.4% or 10.8% or whatever it goes. So this is great.
Well, I'll keep doing that. Thank you.
Awesome.
I learned what institutional racism meant 3 years ago when my mom taught me. Since then, I see policies working against minorities everywhere. With the recent global BLM movement, I think there is more awareness for sure, but I'm not sure if there will be real changes. What do you think it takes to make real change happen?
Yeah, that's a tough one because at least I've seen over my lifetime, I've seen events like what's happened with George Floyd, and Breonna Taylor. I've seen things happen like that over and over again. Before you were even born, there was this guy named Rodney King who, in the early '90s, had a run-in with the cops and ended up getting beaten for really no apparent reason, and that sparked a huge outcry when all the cops that were involved in that beating were found not guilty, and people couldn't understand that. So we've seen this happen over and over again. What will make this different, and what I really do hope it's different, is if institutions like businesses, like higher education, like education in general, if they make a foundational change in the way that they have done things. Like I said, companies changing their hiring practices. That's a sign. If we see more people of color involved in the process of being elected, not just electing people, but running for office, running for local and city and state and federal kinds of positions. We see that will spark change, because once people get into those positions, that means they're able to have more power over these what decision making processes at all levels of government, and that will change things. Seeing more and more investment made in people of color in terms of their businesses. Seeing more women getting more money funded in their businesses. That's a big change. That's a big signal. And that, because if those companies get the capital they need, then the people who are running those companies will be able to hire people. And that makes a big difference. So all of these things are kind of tied together. We get more people running in offices. It could be local and then the federal. Get more people involved in the investment process. Seeing more funds going into companies that are run by women and people of color. That makes a change, because then those people will be able to hire other people, and that could be people in their communities, and that allows people to gain experience and be able to do more. And so yeah, I think there's an opportunity here, because I have seen where companies have said, hey, we're going to invest more in the communities of color. And I've seen people say, I want to create scholarships to send people to of color to school, and allow them to get an education without having a huge debt load when they come out, and that makes a big difference. So we're at the start, and like you said earlier, it's kind of hard to see how much of a change is going to happen, because it's too early to tell. But I'm seeing positive signs, so I'm going to stay positive, and I'm going to hope that we're at the beginning, and as we go month to month and year to year, we should be able to see progress. And sometimes we might get a little frustrated when the progress isn't as fast as we'd like it to be. But if we're at least seeing progress, and hopefully before you know it, we will see significant progress. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see. I mean, you and I will have to keep an eye on this, and we will, right? We will keep an eye on this, and hopefully we'll see what we want to see happen.
This is so important, and we need to keep it going and keep demanding lawmakers for change.
I think so. And you know what? It's not even just demanding lawmakers for change. Sometimes we need to change the lawmakers so that we get the change that we want. And that's why voting is so important, because if you don't vote, then you're leaving it to other people to put those folks in office that will make the decisions for us. And that's really dangerous. That's kind of how we got into the situation we're in today. So we all need to vote. And in 6 years, Ryan, when you're 18, I know you will be out there voting. So I'll vote for now, but I know you'll join me in 6 years in voting. And hopefully we'll see even more change. You know what, Ryan? I have a strong feeling about you. I think you might actually not just be doing the voting. I think people are going to end up voting for you. And that would be a good thing, too.
Well, thank you so much. I am flattered.
That would be so cool if I could say I could vote for Ryan for president, and I could say I knew him way back when, and now look at him now. That would be awesome.
So I really liked Ibram X. Kendi's book. It was How to Be an Anti-Racist. I read it over the summer, and now it is my goal not to just be an anti-racist, but to actually teach everyone else to be an anti-racist as well. What do you think non-Black Americans like me can help to break down racism?
You know what? We mentioned a word a little earlier in our conversation, and I'm going to go back to it: empathy. I think if we all could understand where each other are coming from, then we would all have a better opportunity to actually be friends and to get more things done. So sometimes it's hard to kind of understand things, but if you're open to listening and if you're open to talking about it, then it becomes a lot easier. So all I think I can ask is for people to be more open to hearing what other people have to say, other people's experiences, other perspectives, things that we couldn't possibly know on our own because it's just not the life that we've lived. But if you're open to learning from other people, then I think you will eventually understand that, oh my goodness, I had no idea you guys had to go through this or that you had to put up with that. You know, it's just sometimes people just don't know what they don't know. But if they're open to learning, then I think we all have an opportunity. We have a much more likelihood of becoming friends, of becoming close friends, and really being able to do great things together.
Changes start early, and they start everywhere.
Yes, and it's starting like you when you're starting this podcast early in life. You know, I was 40 something, I think, when I did my first podcast. You're 11 going on 12. I mean, that's great.
Well, I'll keep doing what I'm doing, and yeah. So, last but not least, what would you like to see happening in the upcoming elections? Because it's coming up.
It's really coming up fast. It's less than 3 weeks away. So, guess what? I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, Ryan. Do you know where I grew up?
No, I don't.
Okay, so I grew up in the state of Delaware.
Delaware.
That's right, Delaware. So, do you know who was my senator, U.S. senator, when I was growing up?
Joe Biden?
Joe Biden was my state senator when I was growing up. You know what school that Joe Biden graduated from college?
I'm going to take a guess. Was it the same one that you did?
You're a smart kid. I tell you, you're already smarter than I am. Yes, he went to the University of Delaware. I graduated to the University of Delaware. So I actually have a little inside scoop on what kind of a guy that Joe Biden is. He's genuinely a nice guy. I think I actually even saw him when I was a kid, well, younger, uh, in the Wilmington train station. Yeah, because he takes the train he took the train every day to work. So he'd go to Wilmington, to Washington, D.C., and then back again. So he's a nice guy. I would love to see him to be the next president. I think he's a much nicer guy than the current person that's in the office. And I feel more comfortable with a guy like that. So I'm going to vote for the guy that I grew up in the same state with.
Yeah, I agree with you, except I am not growing up in the same state as the amazing Joe Biden.
Wait a minute. I think I heard something about you participating in a protest, maybe something.
Uh, yes. Last 2 Fridays, I've been going to a rally for Joe Biden.
Wow, how was that?
First time was a bit cussy because there were some of the people on the other side.
Hmm.
Yeah,
But you did it. But you were there.
I was there.
And it's so cool. See, once again, you're starting your podcast. You're out there at rallies. I mean, you're already so far ahead of most people. This is great. I am so proud of you, and I'm proud to be on this podcast with you. So keep up the great work, and I can't wait to hear more of these podcasts. I hope that the podcast after the election is going to be your best one.
Yeah, it'll be my 10th episode, and it'll hopefully be the first one with a different president. So, those are all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much, Mr. Leary. I really learned a lot from you. I hope that our country will be better off in 3 weeks, and that the government can start building some of the programs that you talked about. That's it for A Change of the Chance. I hope that you learned something, and I'll see you in the next episode.